So now we actually get on with the business of having a look at what a function is all about. For those amongst you that are not programmers, you would probably wanting to know what a function actually is, so let's define that first. A function is a named code block. In other words, it's a sequence of code statements that has been collectively given a name. And once you've created that code block with its name, you may actually run that code block at any point simply by invoking the code block by its name. Now that may not make any sense to you, so let's actually have a look at what it looks like. You must actually define a function before you can use it. That might sound obvious, but you actually have to have the definition of the function at a higher point in your file, in your shell script file, than the actual calls to the function. So having said that, let's have a look at the definition of a function. Firstly, you have the function name, and the rules for naming a function are exactly the same as the rules for naming a variable. So the little sample function that I've created for you just here is actually called function underscore name. Now immediately following the word function name, or the name of the function, whatever you've called it, you put an open and closing bracket or parentheses. This signifies to the shell that what you're actually doing here is declaring a new function. The shell then expects that the line immediately following this will be an open brace or an open curly bracket. And then all the lines of code that are read in by the shell up to and including the final close curly bracket are treated as the lines of code that will get executed when the function is called. Now, it's very important. Most novice programmers have a difficult time getting their heads around this bit. The actual code that you write there inside the code block, which could be an ls or a who or any other piece of code that you might like to write, if statements, while loops and so on, that code does not get executed at all until the function gets called by its name. And if the function never gets called by its name, and it's possible that it might not, then that code never runs. So let's now have a look at how to actually call a function by its name. You must do that in the following way. You simply, and it's very simple, you just type in the actual name of the function on a line by itself, and that's it. Now suppose, for example, that you called your function, well, any old name like ABC, and then you made a call to that function from your shell script, so you just had a line in the shell script that just said ABC by itself. If someone else came in and had a look at your shell script and didn't actually notice the definition of the function in the shell script, and all they noticed was the line ABC just by itself, there would actually be no way for them to tell, just by looking at the code, whether that ABC command line was a function, or whether it was a executable file, like a shell script or a binary executable, or whether it was, say, an alias or even a shell built-in. There's actually no way to tell just by looking at the command line itself. They could have a little hunt around and find that there is actually a function declared with the name ABC, and that would obviously give them some clue. But I just wanted to stress that it's not immediately obvious just looking at the command line what that command line object actually is. Could be a function, could be a program, could be a built-in, could be an alias. Aliases actually are not supported by the Born shell script, but they're actually supported by the Corn shell scripts, or Born Again shell scripts, or C shell scripts, and so on. Anyway, it's probably time to have a look at an example of that. Here is that program that we used as an exercise from the last chapter, the one where we use grep to determine regular expression matching of the lines of a file. And I've actually created in this program a function, and the function's name is pause, and here is its definition. Now you can see the word pause, and then the open and close round brackets, then the open curly bracket and the close curly bracket are there as well. And the code block is actually just simply two lines of code, one echo and one read. Now please note that when I start this script and run it from scratch, those two lines of code do not immediately get executed. They only get executed when I call this function, and this function is called the first time down here. So the very first line of code that gets run is this one, file equals grep test, but you don't actually see any output because that's just a variable assignment. then the next line of code that gets run is this echo down here. Lines that start with a T, followed by that grep, followed by, and here's the important part, the pause. Now, as soon as pause is called, the execution of code immediately jumps up to here, runs that line, then runs that line, and then jumps back out and goes down to this echo here, which will do that echo, then that grep, and then that pause, which will then jump back up to here, run that read and that echo, and then jump back out and down to here again. So theoretically, every time we run the grep, we will run the pause immediately afterwards, which should prompt us to press enter between every consecutive output of grep. So let's have a look at that actually running. Run that now. Lines that start with a T, and there's 4 of them. Then it says press enter to continue, so I do. Then I get the blank lines and another press enter to continue. Lines that have 2 or more A's anywhere in them, and there's 1 of those, and then the 2 or more digits, and then the special pattern, that's the advanced one, and then that's the end of the program. So that is a very simple demonstration of the working of one function. There's actually a little bit more to functions than that. Functions can also take parameters, just like functions in other programming languages, and functions can also return values. And again, we're going to have a look at both of those options in the next couple of modules. So let's do that now.